GRP episode number 9. This is going to have a special guest as well. It's going to have Eddie Dodd on here. We're in the new shop. Hopefully everything you can hear me well. When somebody gets in, everybody gets in. We'll get this going. When Eddie gets on, and we'd like to keep this going. Sorry about last week. We had some things going where I wasn't able to get on here, and just timing's everything, Realistically, we want to do one every week, but with the way I'm trying to do it and going live, of course I want to have good internet connection and make sure that you guys get the most enjoyable show that I can give you. So Eddie's going to come on now, and we'll get this rolling. What's up, Eddie?
What's going on, buddy?
What's up? Can you hear me good?
Yeah, man, I can hear you. You hear me all right?
All right, good. Yes, sir. Perfect. I like you. You got it set up, man. It looks like you're the one doing the show here.
Yeah, well,
Is this your
computer's in here in my race room, so it's just easier standing here.
That's right. Absolutely, man. So thanks for coming on. I'm going to go ahead and get started and tell everybody about Outlaw Chassis Engineering. Brett and the guys, have you seen some of the work they've done, Eddie?
Oh, yeah. Brett and them do good work. They have years and years.
Yeah. So if you guys are looking to get your car redone this off season and you don't know how to do it, you got beat up, you race Sayre, Huntsville, Montgomery, any of those places, they've got experience everywhere with Paul, Gary Sanford Jr., Brett, Ryan Logan's raced a lot at BIR and Sayre now. I'm not sure if he's traveled to other places, but if you want your car set up, new bodies put on it, if you just need help in general, reach out to them guys. The number is 205-522-7759. So as y'all can see, now we got Eddie Dodd on the show. Eddie, I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I chose you. Okay. Knowing your background from Mini Mod, you've raced late models, you've raced super trucks now, correct?
Yeah.
Limited cars.
Race or two with the truck before I got rid of it.
Yep. And so the limited modifieds, you've raced Montgomery, you've raced Huntsville. Did you ever race BR?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And Sayre and Jasper.
Correct.
So you've been around the total package of short track racing. And so start out by telling us when you started racing.
I actually started 93, I believe it was the first time I drove, back when I used to run heat races at Sayre. We would take my dad would take the car out there and he would run the feature and I would run heat races with it. And actually, that's actually how it started. I would just run the heat races back in like 92, 93.
Okay. Was that back when it was pure pony? Is that what you was racing?
They were still pony stocks, but I mean, we were still like on Yokohama street tires. It's still about the time I think your dad and your uncle and all of those when they started out at Jasper.
Yep, that's right. So my dad started in 93 at Jasper. Got his first rookie of the year. But so your dad, Randy Dodd, correct?
No, Eddie. Randy
your
Dodd.
Dad?
Yeah, my dad's name was Eddie too. I'm not related to Randy.
Oh, yeah, no. Okay, so there's Randy Dodd Jr. That's got double L on his, and you, all right. So Eddie Dodd Sr., Eddie Dodd Jr.
Correct.
That threw me off. All right, so I knew the red and white 81 car with the picture of you and your dad is the one that really sticks in my mind when I'm thinking about mainly that new car you did kind of was a rendition of that.
Yeah, the last year, which I believe it was 2019, when my mini mod still had the stock Pinto body on it. The last year that we done throwback, we changed it just a little bit, but it was pretty close to what my dad had.
Yeah, and so that's the picture of the car that really sticks out. So a couple of questions I got lined up, and I'll go through them here.
Okay.
Out of the tracks that you've raced, the ones here, which one do you like the most?
I mean, I like racing at Montgomery. Me as a driver, I feel like I get around Huntsville better.
Okay.
I mean, in the 29, 30 years I've been racing, even after running a full season this year in a limited mod, I still don't feel like I've just got a grasp on that racetrack at Savory.
Yeah.
We're working on it. I mean, we're having to change the car every week because we're just trying to change to this and whatever we can find to try to make the car better. And progressively over the year, we've gotten better this year. But of course, now the season's over, so we got to wait and try it again.
Yeah, and it always feels like at Sayre, it's like it's a complete new track after a rain.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different variations of Sayre. So you think Huntsville's the one you get around the best, but you like Montgomery.
Yeah, I like Montgomery. I mean, I like all of them. To me, and the only thing that I've ever driven at Huntsville is a pony car, so I can't really equate it to anything else. Now, at Montgomery, I've drove the late model. I've drove Dustin Knowles modified out there a couple of times. Of course, my mini mod, numerous races. I drove street stock a couple of times down there. So I mean, I've drove a bunch of stuff at Montgomery, but when you get a car handling at Montgomery, it's really just boring to drive. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
like
so that's
40 miles an hour and you're running 100.
yeah, that's I'm watching you guys down there in those cars and watching I guess the red 81 now, is that the Pinto chassis with just a sheet metal body on it?
Yeah, that's it. It's still the same car. Everybody thought I built another car, and the main
Mhm.
reason is I bought it was a black. I don't even remember what number was on it, but the car raced at Jasper. It was a black Pinto, and the guy hit the wall coming out of turn 4 and just killed the snout on it.
Yep, 61.
I think that was it, 61 or something like that. But anyway, I bought that car for him. Basically, I bought it for parts. And when I took my stock body off, I sat it on that car. And there's a picture that I think my wife accidentally posted on Facebook. Well, it's my original Pinto chassis when we painted the chassis with that other car sitting there. And everybody swore up down we built a second car, but we didn't. The
Yeah.
red bodied outlaw car, Pro 4 car that I have is still the Pinto chassis.
So that is that the one that was blue and silver as well?
Yes, that's the one that
Then
we did World of Wheels 2015. It was blue and silver.
okay.
Same car I brought to Jasper. And then I think I raced it 2 seasons that way. And then that's when I put the throwback paint scheme to my dad's car on it.
That's right. And so when you changed it over to the Pro 4 look is what
Right.
I'll call it. That's when you won the championship, correct?
The second year I did. The first year I did, it had a white body on it. And we had some struggles with it, trying to push it through the air and a lot of things like, when you take these wedge bodied cars and start putting all this wedge to them, the problem with the 4-cylinder stuff is you don't have enough motor to push it through the air. So once you start
Right.
putting giant wedge bodies on them, start backing them up to get them through the air, because you're not talking, you know, 250, 260 horsepower is all you've got to shove it through the air.
Hmm. Yeah, and so that's the same year that you won the Hunt the Bear, correct?
Yeah.
Championship Hunt the Bear the same
I,
year.
I won it. I won a championship in the Hunt the Bear in 2020, and then I went back in 2021 and won the Hunt for the Bear the second year. So I
That's
won
right.
it.
Yep. So out of the Hunt the Bear, have you ever won a King of Dixie?
I have not. I
So
That's what me and my wife was talking about earlier today. Until this season, driving a limited modified, I have never completed an entire season at Sayre.
really,
Really, the first I've ever completed, and still missed 2 races this year. But this is the first season that I've completed all the races except for those 2 that I missed.
well, I thought you looked great in the limited modified, especially the last the last race. It's like it all kind of came together, and I know it seemed with those bigger races. I feel like the longer the race goes, you get better. But you started out really strong in the
Yeah,
King of Dixie this year. I almost thought that if the 26 car couldn't have got through the field the way he did, you was going to seam that one up. I mean,
yeah,
you
and that
looked really
and
good.
is we had been kind of sneaking up on the setup on the car, and most of our races are 20 laps, and so
Yeah.
we'd gotten to where that's where we were when we got that 40 lap race. Once it got 18, 20 laps in the race, the car was getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and when he got there was nothing I could do.
Yeah, no, but I mean, you really looked good in that race starting out, and if it would have been a 20-lap race, you would have won it, right? I
Correct.
mean, you led a little over halfway. But
Yeah.
so out of all the races that you've won, which one is the most memorable race?
I think the main one, the most memorable one, would be the 2020 year when I won Hunt for the Bear. Because literally we went down there the race before the Hunt for the Bear. We actually dropped a valve and destroyed a motor, or at least we thought we did.
Mhm,
Uh, and we brought the car home, and I was just trying to figure out what I was going to do. And Dustin Knowles is like a brother to me. I mean, all of his cars are in my shop, and he said, "Well, just take the Volkswagen down," because pretty much all I had to do was start the race to clinch the championship.
mhm.
And I was like, well, I can do that. Or, I talked to Bobby Roos a couple of times about driving that blue number 7 car that's racing out there at Sayre with y'all. I can't think, Sam or whatever the guy's name is that drives
Yeah,
it.
Samuel Kelly.
Um,
Mhm,
Before he bought it, he had said, well, just come down here and get it. Cause I had even called Bobby and I said, I hate to ask this, but I need to rent the motor out of that car. And he said, no, don't do that. Just come get the whole car. And I got to talking with Walter Cartledge and Dustin, and so we got down to the shop. Let's just pull the cylinder head off and just see how bad it is. So we pulled the cylinder head off the car. It dropped 2 valves, just disintegrated, but it didn't tear the head up. It dropped the mushroom off the bottom of the valve and stuck it in the piston. So I called around. I had a couple valves. I called around. Um, uh, I can't think of the guy's last name, Vincent, up there in Coleman. He had a used piston. So I drove to Coleman and bought a used piston. Walter put it back in the motor, and the motor was so wore out from running that season. When we put the piston in it, the piston that we put in it, 15,000 bigger than the other 3 that was in the motor. And so we took valves out of a used head and put 2 used valves in it, used piston in it. Went back to the racetrack, and I told Stan when I got there, I said, I'm not going to practice. I'm not going to qualify, because I don't know if this motor might run 10 laps. It might run the length of the front straightaway and blow up. And literally, when I took the green flag, the temperature gauge was dead on 0. It didn't have no heat in the motor, have nothing in it.
never got it hot.
Yep. And we went down there and I pulled it in high gear. And it it had 0 power, wouldn't go nowhere, but it was dead cold. And so we actually run like 6th or 7th in that race until probably halfway, when I finally looked over and the temperature gauge was up to like 100, and I was like, well, okay, so I cut the fan on, and then the car took off. And then as it took off, just every lap I'd get it, catch it, and run them down. And then I caught Dustin when Dustin was in the Volkswagen. Well, he wanted to just play because he didn't realize that we had actually got to where the car was running. So we was
Yeah,
out there playing and trying to scratch fenders and all that good stuff until I finally got around him and started running the leaders down. I caught Rusty Iverson with 2 to go and got by him and was running the leader down, but the leader was a whole straightaway ahead of me. And his spotter got on the radio and told him that I was coming, and he started watching the mirror instead of driving a race car, and I run him down and caught him. I caught him coming off of turn 4 to take the white flag. I led literally 1 lap and clinched, winning the first Bear and the championship all on the same night.
yep. So did you thank his spotter?
Yeah, I sure did. I mean, I
Yeah, so
got 2 to when we got 2 to go, I went off in the corner, and his eyes were bigger than mine were, and I could see him in the mirror. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, why is he watching me drive your car? And he looked up in the mirror, and as soon as he looked up, he moved up, and I just turned to the bottom and drove under him.
yep. And, do you recall who that was?
The guy's name was Calvin Lewis, but he was driving a car that belonged to the Davises out of Huntsville, Jeremy
That's
Davis and
it. Yep,
Davis.
I remember the car.
Yeah, he sold the car to Wesley Davis, which is the dad. He sold it to them, and then he drove it Wesley drove it a couple of times, and Calvin Lewis drove it a couple of times at Montgomery.
Yeah, and so it had that newer style Mustang
Yeah,
front
yeah,
front nose. Yeah, so I remember the car.
the same nose piece and fenders like Josh Matt's car had, a little bit older than my car.
That's
Uh,
right.
but it had the full body on it. It didn't have the complete wedge body on it like my car had.
Yeah, his had the Ford, I think they're rubber, aren't they? They're not even fiberglass. They're
They're
rubber
plastic.
rear quarters and
Yeah, pretty
plastic. Yeah.
same body that's on Samuel Kelly's car, but the nose piece is different. Where
Okay.
Samuel got the Fusion nose on it, that car had a Mustang nose on it.
So yeah, and when you have trouble like that I mean, if people don't race, they don't understand when you have that trouble, you kind of go the track with that gut feeling,
Yeah,
hoping, if it makes it, do I even have a chance? Because you've never ran that engine. You could
yeah.
put two engines together just alike and they can completely be different. So
And
I
that,
can understand where that being a
everybody that come to the shop, I would crank that thing. I said, dude, this car's knocking. It's not going to make this race. And they're like, dude, it's not knocking. We don't even hear nothing. But, every noise in the car.
Yep.
And like I said, I mean, we never cranked it we cranked our at like 5:30, 6 o'clock, which we had our pop-ups and stuff over it. And I literally just reached in there and hit the switch just to make sure the MSD box, none of that stuff was wet. It literally cranked, run for like 15 seconds and cut it off. It never got cranked, never run nothing until we lined up to go start that feature. And even
Yeah.
when we put down to line up, because at Montgomery you line up on pit road. When we pulled down there and lined up, when I got in my spot to start, I'd have reached up there and cut the car off. It didn't sit there and idle. It didn't do nothing.
Just letting
Yeah,
letting
because
it be whole.
yeah, in my brain, this thing's gonna blow up. We're gonna take the green flag and it's gonna explode going down the front straightaway. Is what in my brain. That's what I was thinking. And just every time I'd pass a car, I was like, "There's just no way this thing is still running. There's just no way." Uh, and even my Facebook and stuff like that. But even in the pictures of Victory Lane, there's oil just dripping off all four corners of the car. I mean, it slung. When we got home after that race, it had a quart of oil in it out of 5. I mean, it
Yeah.
was blowing up. Luckily, the race wasn't but 30 laps. If it'd been 40 laps, I don't think it would ever made it.
Yeah, and when you're running them that hard, probably the best thing for you is where you started, you was having to run it hard, so you
Yeah,
wasn't able to really sit there and worry about the car, worry
right.
about what's next in front of you.
Yeah, and
Um, so
that was is we had accomplished so much with winning so many races that year. I mean, literally, I stamped the winning a championship by taking a green flag. And I mean, honestly, show up. The next guy that was there, which was Josh McElhone, he
mhm,
was in points. He would pretty much have to win the race to even tie me in points. But then I'd won 6 races, so the tiebreaker would have been how many races you won. So literally, I didn't even have to show up. But to get to show up in my car, lead one lap of it, win the bear, bring the bear home, and win the championship all in one night. I mean, that was a good accomplishment right there.
yeah, it's definitely a big compliment for your crew as well because a lot of these people that race in and out, or if they're racing, once you get the first sign of adversity, they just quit. So being that deep in the season, knowing you could have just stayed home and still had a chance of winning the championship, or to even say, halfway through the season, uh, I'm just going to stay home. That's what
Right,
a lot of people don't understand how hard it is to win a championship, or even really to just go win one race.
right. Yeah,
You brought up Sayre, and Sayre's one of the harder places to race. But somebody like myself, if I just try to go to Montgomery once or twice a year, it would be
mm,
hard to win,
right,
or to Huntsville, or just anywhere people try to travel to any of
right.
these local tracks. They just show up once and think they should be able to win. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
But
because
yeah, so congratulations on the championship. Um, so we've talked about your favorite track, Montgomery. That's your most memorable race.
yeah,
Which car out of all the cars that you've drove would you say is your favorite?
my Pinto that I still got. I've been offered stupid money for that car and I refuse to sell it. I've actually owned that car. I bought that car when I was 6 years old for $50. I drove it to high school. I've literally owned that car almost 40 years.
Now, which one are you talking about? The Pinto you own?
The the red one that I won a championship with, I bought that car when I was 6 years old for $50, and I've
Okay,
had
so that same car that you're
yeah,
talking about.
mhm,
Okay, yeah, because we was kind of calling it the Pro Ford body, but so
yeah,
that same Pinto that you've evolved through the years is
yeah,
your favorite car. I could
correct.
see that. Didn't you used to run a Toyota?
Yes, actually, we still own a Toyota.
Okay,
Just haven't brought it out and raced it down there, but we still do have a Toyota. It's been through. I'm trying to remember who originally built it. we bought it from Brandon Kirkpatrick, and raced it a couple of years at Montgomery. It's got a fiberglass body on it, but I'm trying to remember whose car it was originally. But we still do own a stock body Toyota. It's
Okay.
probably you haven't bought, but we still own one.
It's what did you say?
It's probably the only one you haven't seen and tried to buy. But
Yeah.
yeah, I can't remember whose car that was originally. I know Dustin bought it from Brandon Kirkpatrick years ago. I mean, we've had this thing like 10 years. I've raced it at Huntsville. Well, we've raced it at Dustin has raced it at Sayre a couple of times.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah.
What does it look like? Should I be able to remember it?
If you remember, it's flat black with a red roof on it, and it just had a 64 on the side of it. You remember
Okay.
back,
Yeah.
I
I
don't
think I
know,
remember the car.
10, 12 years ago when we were pulling with the school bus? Dustin had the little short bus that we always pulled with.
Yeah.
I know back in that time because that's when we hauled it. The only two times it's ever been to Sayre, we pulled it with a school bus.
Yeah. So why did you make the most recent change to Ford and start running the Fords?
Actually, to build the chassis that I have now, that's in my Pro 4 Pinto that I had the idea of building that car out of a Toyota. I wanted to
Hmm.
use a stock stub from the firewall back. It's tube chassis, just like most of your modifieds are nowadays. But I had an idea to build that car out of a Toyota.
Okay.
And when I sold the last car that I had, I sold the last Toyota I owned. I sold to Bruce Poston right before he had his accident.
Hmm.
Uh, and I was hunting a Toyota and hunting one and hunting one. I just couldn't find one. And we kept looking and looking. I was like, you know what? I said, we can just build one out of this Pinto because it's sitting in the driveway. At the time, it was just sitting under the lean-to out back, just sitting there. It wasn't doing nothing but just ruining.
Yeah.
So I'd been talking to Wayne Hill. Wayne Hill's the one that actually built the chassis in that car. I called him and asked him about it. Well, what do you think if we just switch it over and build a Pinto instead of building a Toyota? He's like,
Hmm.
I don't really see what it is. Reading the rules the way we read them, I mean, the Pinto doesn't have to weigh 2170 because it's with a stock stub in it. So
Right.
that's why we built it. But it was actually
And
a Toyota is how it started. But I
yeah.
just, at the point I was ready to pull the trigger and build one, I couldn't find one.
So you said from the firewall forwards a stock Pinto, but everything back is
Yeah, the Pinto is just like Toyota. It's a unibody car. So
that's right.
basically, it has a floorboard and a drive shaft tunnel in it up under my seat. There's no
Okay.
passenger floorboard and there's no rear floorboard, but it has the entire stock Pinto snap in the car, not
Yeah.
tube frame sticking out there with a stock cradle in it and they're claiming it stock. It has a stock stamped steel part numbers included 73 model Pinto snout on it. Still has a
That's
stock
pretty cool.
everything.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And so really the way you built the car, it's pretty easy to work on from the way I've seen pictures of it on Facebook. You can just pull the sheet metal off the sides and you can get in there and work on anything.
Yeah,
A lot easier to keep it clean that way too.
yeah, it is. You just put it on jack stands and just pressure wash it and be done with it. I mean, you don't have, if you blow a motor or something like that, or, just got an oil leak in general, just climb up under it with some simple green, let it sit for a minute, pressure wash it off, and you're done.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I love the car. I remember when Wayne was building it. I mean, back when y'all was building it, I wasn't around, but just watching and following on Facebook.
Yeah,
And I think right about that time when you had the blue and silver Toyota, I mean Ford, the Pinto, and you come to Jasper was about the only time me and you had ever interacted with one another.
right.
It
Yeah.
might even it mi- was it blue at that time or was it
Yeah.
red and
'Cause
white?
that was 2015. The only time it's ever been to Jasper is when it was blue and silver.
And that's what I was thinking.
Because that was the same year that it won the World of Wheels.
Yep.
Um, I had a buddy of mine that had a fit wanting to paint that car, and that car had like a $6,000 paint job on it. And everybody's like, "Man, I cannot believe you brought that thing." I said, "It's a race car." I said, "I didn't
Yeah.
spend the money. You know, I'm not stupid enough to put a $6,000 paint job on a round track car, but
That's
that's what
right.
that's what he spent to do it." And whatever. But yeah, the
Yeah,
only
but
time I've ever been to Jasper as far as racing. Now we've took it down there and tested it once or twice, but the only time it's ever raced at Jasper, it was blue and silver.
Yeah. So while we're on the Jasper aspect, you've raced that track, you've raced St. Ree. Um, a lot of people don't understand. You can run the same exact setup, but the way you drive the track at Jasper versus St. Ree is completely different. So think about the characteristics of Jasper. Is it like any other track that you've raced on?
No, no, it's not.
Yeah. So what do you think makes it so different?
I think really and truly because you have to, in the pony cars, or I'm not sure about the Toyotas because I have drove a Toyota down there, but the Ford 3/4 way down the back straightaway, if you're not standing in the brakes, you're not making that corner going into three. Now 1 and 2,
Yeah.
burp it in the center of the corner and drive through it, no problem. But 3 and 4, if you're not on the brakes hard 3/4 way down the back straightaway, you're not gonna make that turn.
Yeah, it's definitely tricky. The coming out of 1 and 2, if you're too high, you almost uh, what I say, unload the left rear of the car with that dip there,
Hmm.
and you just killed your total entrance into 3 and 4. And if you come out too low, then you have to shake the car up the track to try to
Right,
get the entrance to 3 and 4. It's very the characteristics of it is just completely different, and it varies the way you drive the track on how much speed you actually shave off. You're shaving speed, it just depends on how you're
right,
going to shave it. Either
right,
get the car too loose or get the car too tight. But
right. It's a
that
very,
being
and I don't think I've ever raced any racetrack that had the same two corners. Not any racetrack I've ever been around. Montgomery, Savory, Huntsville, a dirt track. No, even taking laps at Talladega Super Speedway and Arca car, they're not the same corners in anything. But that thing right there, I mean, it's night and day difference at Jasper. Now, if they take 3 and 4 at Jasper like 1 and 2 is, you could fly around that place. I don't think you'd have
you
to own in a Toyota.
yeah, I don't even know that you would be able to get away with a 358 gear at
Yeah,
that point. I think you'd have to go even farther away than that because you'd almost be wide open
yeah,
all the way around the racetrack. We literally threw 1 and 2, like you said, just burping enough to let air get to the carburetor and let everything catch up and go back to it.
right.
Um, I can remember when Chase Bradlin first come out there to race when we was going to run that big race, and we was pretty consistent then, winning some races. And through 1 and 2, I was watching him practice, and we was hitting him on the stopwatch, and he didn't. The first few times he came over there, he didn't let out of the gas at all through one
Nope.
and two. But that 75 car always turned well, and of course he's a wheel man. But I,
Yeah,
I told Daddy during the race, eventually the car is gonna go away at that point because we had been over there practicing, testing.
right,
About seven laps of running them on the complete edge through 1 and 2. Those American racers or Hoosiers just don't hold up to that
right.
consistently. But um, it's pretty fun watching somebody that their car handles well, watching them get around Jasper and hitting them with a stopwatch. And one lap you'll see them go at 12.3, and one lap you'll see them go at 12.9. And all
Right.
they did was move up a quarter of a car on the entry in 3 and 4. And it'll kill you just like that.
Which Chase was always that. I mean, it didn't matter if we were at Montgomery or Sayre. I mean, I followed him and watched his hands back when he was doing his YouTube and he would put his videos up. I would sit here and
Yeah.
watch him on TV, and I'm like, man, he's making me tired just watching him drive it. He never quits moving in anything.
He's
Whether
hustling.
it was even worse in a pony car. Now the late models and stuff, he's calmed down a bunch in. But back when he was doing that red and black 75 car, I mean, he never quit moving his hands. Even on straightaway, he was moving. And I was
Yeah.
like, man, he makes me tired just sitting here watching him.
And so that videos you're talking about, he's just like
Yep, he's soft.
he's consistently, yeah, he's sawing at the wheel. But it
No,
was never an inconsistent line with him. It's like he was just keeping the car where it needed to be versus it just settling down
we,
and doing it for him.
we raced at Montgomery a bunch, me and Chase did, and I run second to him a bunch of times. And I was watching the car out my windshield, and the car wasn't moving compared to what his hands were moving. I
Yeah.
mean, the car was just like this, but his hands is like, I mean, and I was like, man, how in the world is he doing that? But, whatever works. It was working
Hey,
for him for a
and
long
and he's doing great. I mean, watching him in that 11 car of John Boy's,
time. Hmm.
he's smooth, and there's smooth on the wheel, and then there's smooth in the floorboard, and gas and brake through. I feel like I've never drove a late model, but I feel like the way you're consistent in the late model is in the brake, out of the brake, in the gas,
Yeah.
out of the gas, because there's so much more. It seems like rolling into the rolling into the throttle off the corner and easing into the brake to settle the car down
Yeah,
through the
you're
center.
pretty much in a model or a late model. If you pick your gas pedal foot up, you put your brake foot down. You don't let off like in a pony car. You let off the gas and then drag the brake. Whatever you
Right.
do, or modified, if you pick your right foot up, you got your left foot going down. They're moving simultaneously together, and
Yeah.
that's a lot of my problem in the limited modified this year. Is because I keep trying to drive it like a pony car. I want to sail it off in the corner, stand on the brakes, and make it rotate and get in the gas, and you cannot do that.
That's
I've learned
right.
the hard way that does not work. And even in a limited modified, I could only imagine trying to do that in one of the big cars that has a carburetor and enough horsepower to rotate it.
Right. Yeah. And so those limited cars, like you said, they don't have the horsepower, but their weight to horsepower ratio is way different than it is in a pony stock. And that's I've always said that they're probably the hardest to drive. Our cars are probably the hardest to drive because of how on the edge you are
Yeah.
all the way through the corner.
With a pony car, it's momentum racing.
Yeah.
It's back to like go kart racing. If you slip, it takes you a lap to get back to where you were. You can't just jump
Hmm.
back and go cut the next corner down because it screws your whole corner up. And that whole lap is gone. Whether you're at
Yeah.
Montgomery or you're at Sayre or Jasper, you screw up one corner, it takes 2 laps to get back in that rhythm to get back where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the crazy part about it is people think that the Fords are at a disadvantage, and I think I was talking about this the other day, and you've never ran a full season at Sayre, which means you've never consistently showed up with your mini stock and
Right.
ran all of the races. And me and my dad was talking about this, and I said myself, the only reason why a Ford hadn't been dominant at Sayre is because Jeff, Roy, my dad, or even back in the day, there was other guys that drove them consistently and they won. But none of the guys that was moving forward with the Toyota stuff decided, "Hey, I'm going over there every single week to race a Ford,"
Right.
and they've never showed up consistently enough. Now, me saying that, that's my thoughts. You've drove both cars, and now we've seen the 7 car run pretty consistent
Yeah.
lap times. Do
The
you
main
think it can be done today in a Ford
it
at
can be
Sayre?
the main issue that we have is to build a really decent 300 to put in one of these Ford motors. You can build 3 of those 3T motors.
That's right.
That's the main problem is, and none of us are making money doing this. We all know this, but
Yeah.
when you have to spend, you know, $8,000 to $10,000 to build a motor to go race for $175 to $200, it doesn't make sense. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's just not economical anymore.
no, I mean, because the cylinder head that I have on that red car, it was completed before it dropped a valve was right at $9,000. That's just a cylinder head. Then you got working on a crank, set of rods, set of pistons. I mean, pistons for 2,300 or $740 for 4 pistons. You can buy
Yeah.
set of small block Chevrolet pistons for what you can buy 4 Ford pistons for.
Yeah, that's always been crazy to me, but I guess the casting and resetting up the equipment to build something that's not
Yeah,
as popular as those
right,
when you think, yes, a lot of people run a Toyota or a lot of people run a Ford, but not in comparison to people that run Chevrolets. So
right.
setting up the casting and stuff
Yeah.
just adds to the cost because we're running a compact car versus a
I mean, you can take 150 over Toyota piston and put it inside a stock 2,300 piston with room to
yeah.
spare. I mean, it's a difference. Uh,
But describing that for people, the domes are a lot different though.
well, see, like with a Ford, we can't even run a dome. We have to run a flat top. Where a
That's right.
Toyota,
That's what I'm
is a factory dome.
yeah.
I mean, it can be done. I mean, if you'll remember 5, 6 years ago, Adam Gunner got in Carl Griffith's car and just striped the field with it and just run and
Yeah.
hid from it. I mean,
Yeah.
it can be done. It's just whether somebody wants to take the initiative to do it.
And that's what I was talking about. Is the right people haven't decided, hey, I'm going to run a Ford. Chase Bradlin drove the Strickland car, if I'm not mistaken. It was a Zero, right? The Pinto.
Yeah, it was Lee Lee something, and then Lee sold it to
Yeah,
uh, and that's when they Wayne Hill put a body on it. They left the stock roof of the Pinto on it, but put sheet metal sides on it.
and the
And they
car looked great.
had a couple of races out there, won, and just had bad luck with something. Rocker arm come off or got hung. I know one night he was leading and got in a wreck with a lap car. But I mean, it can be done. Just you have to make it practical.
Yeah,
And I mean, at that point, I mean, I mean, um, I mean, like, I've had 1,000 people, every week. You need to bring that red car out to Savory. You need to bring that red car out to Savory. Well, and the
yeah,
problem is you take a car, a pony car. It don't matter, whether we're on good terms or not. It's hard to take a Toyota and pass a car that is 6 foot wide. When
yeah.
Toyota a little over 4 foot wide. You take, I mean, my uh, Outlaw late model that was out there, King and Dixie, that Dustin Knowles was driving.
Hmm.
My Pro 4 car is as wide as that thing is, and it's only about 4 inches shorter than that car.
Yeah,
And then, whether you're trying to race clean or not, it's hard to pass something that's 6 foot wide when you're in something that's a little over 4 foot wide.
yeah, for sure. And the momentum we carry in and through the center would probably be different than what you're doing at Montgomery. So it'd be
Yeah,
a complete, I wouldn't say a complete different setup, but it would be a wilder ride.
yeah,
So having that length and width probably works there because of the way you drive that track.
yeah. And I mean, and we've won races at Huntsville, and we didn't really change. Honestly, the only thing we changed to go to Huntsville from the Montgomery setup was the front springs. That's the only thing we changed. Um, and I mean, I feel like we could probably do something with it at Savory. I've just never put forth the effort other than just, let's take it out there this week. And then I get aggravated because and I'm like, well, the hell with it. We'll go do something else.
Yeah,
And then, like I said, now, I've raced 4-cylinder cars for almost 30 years. It's time to do something else. I mean, I bought the truck and sold the truck, bought the late model. As soon as I got the late model, then Walter called and asked me about driving a limited car. So, I mean, literally my Pro 4 car is in the back of the corner. It's basically a catch-all is what it is. You see it, stuff piled all over the top of it. And other than just a glimpse of red every once in a while, you can't even tell it's back there.
yeah. So do you have plans with it at all? Since you've went to the limited and now you got the late model, what is your plans for next season?
As far as next season, unless the purple car, the limited modified sales, I will be back in the limited modified next year. Even if that car sells and there's plans to do something else, so I should be back in the limited modified next year.
Okay, okay. So yeah, I mean you had a rookie of the year run. I mean it was a good run.
Yeah,
Colby Fitzgerald did wind up winning it, and you finished fifth in points, right?
right. Yeah, yeah.
So
Kobe got by me, and Billy Black got by me the last 2 races. I had to miss a race to go to Texas, my wife's sister's wedding, and then
funeral, you said it.
right. Let's see, the weekend before we went to the beach, I just went ahead and took that weekend off because I needed to put a set of tires on the car, and I was like, I'm not spending $640 the night before I go to the beach. I'll just
Yeah,
this week out. Looking back on it now, I should have at least showed up, got my points because I think there was only 4 cars that night.
yeah,
I'd have stayed on old tires. I still better than I was. But for the season to start out like it did, we got in a pretty bad wreck. I think the second or third race of the year, and tore up a lot of parts on the front of that car. But luckily with them running every other week, we had 2 weeks to fix it. I think we literally put that car back to finished it Wednesday before the next race. And then, like I said, I mean, we've changed everything on that thing about 3 times just to get it to where I can drive it.
right. You
And I
could
mean,
definitely tell early in the year you was fighting it.
yeah. Well, we had took a car that, everybody says, well, this number cross should work, and this left side should work, and this percentage should work. It Everybody drives something. I mean, Like right now, I couldn't come jump in your Toyota and take off in it, and you can't go jump in my limited car and take off with it because I mean they're two totally different races. I mean to the point right now, I think I'm down to like 48.1% cross in that limited car.
Really,
Just
for a
get it to work.
big car, that's
Yeah, and
yeah,
everybody's going
that's
all the way
tall.
down. I'm like, like you said, oh, we'll go out there and watch it go around the racetrack.
Yeah,
And it's actually we we kept nipping at it, nipping at it, nipping at it, and finally I went to the house and got the book, and it literally, other than the actual wheel weight numbers and the total weight, is the exact setup that's under my Pro 4 car is what's under it right now, and it's
just fits you.
I can drive it.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
fits you.
yeah. I mean, on paper, that thing should spin out rolling out of the trailer, but it's I can drive it. No
Yeah,
sway bar, nothing. We bump the sway bar to qualify it, and then after I qualify it, we back it off 2 rounds, and that's how I race the feature. It has zero bar in it.
hey, I believe you. The bar on mine, they say you're not supposed to just flop them around. That's
Mm-hmm.
if you put a quarter round more in it than what's in it right now,
Yeah,
it's tight. It's horrible. So, what I'm gonna do is take all my springs out and go have the ratings tested and see, um, if because the bar being that neutral and then the car still getting tight at the end of the race just doesn't
yeah,
work. And
yeah.
it's hard to drive a tight car.
It is,
If you
especially. I mean, it really it's even worse at Sayre.
yeah,
Montgomery and Huntsville, places like that. If it's a little tight, I mean, even really if it's just really tight, I mean, with a pony car, you can still drive it. It's Sayre and Jasper. If you got one that's tight, it's done. You might as well park it
yeah,
because you're not doing nothing but killing the right front.
that's right. Yeah. Some nights I wish I could have pulled the trailer with the car and drove my F-350 is
Yeah.
how I felt when it was just horrible pushing,
Oh yeah.
horrible
I
pushing.
mean, we've
Um,
done the same thing with that limited car. We'll go out there like 4th of July weekend. We finished third with the car, carried it home, put it on jack stands that night. Went back 2 weeks later, nut and bolted it. Went to the racetrack, and it was the same way. It's like I didn't know we brought a bulldog. The car wouldn't turn in a 40-acre field. It wouldn't do nothing. Changed all 4 springs, all 4 shocks, put a new right rear tire on it. It made it better, but it still wouldn't. Still wouldn't work. Still wouldn't this. So finally, we went home, put it back on the scales, changed shocks again, changed this again, took some more cross out of it, and went to the racetrack, and it went flying. And then sit out 2 weeks, like we have to go back to the racetrack.
mhm.
It's like you know, it's like you took a Winston Cup car and tried to carry it down there and run it on dirt, just straight
Yeah,
from like this ain't gonna work.
yeah.
Uh,
So the limited cars, would you say you drive them? You do drive them more on the right rear?
yeah, I
Like
everything off the feel of the right rear.
yeah,
Um, I'm still so used to when a car goes off the corner, I can feel it fill over and flop on that right rear. Then that's when I'm comfortable in the car and I drive the car. Until I can get that feeling, I'm not comfortable in the car.
yeah. So I didn't ever really know what that was until this year, honestly. I had drove my dad's car, which it was already pre-handling when I started driving it, the old hatchback car at
Yeah,
Jasper, and, you could feel when you roll in the corner and it would just get down on the right rear and you get in the gas and you
yeah,
just eventually develop that trust that it's just
it's
going
stuff.
somewhere near that flag stand. It's gonna stick and go. It feels like it's gonna spin out, but it's not. It's gonna all catch back up in
Yeah,
just a few 100 feet, you'll be fine.
yeah. It
Uh,
feels off the corner. As it's rolling, it almost when it hooks, it's like the right rear blows out because it's like it falls 8 inches. It feels like in the car. I mean, it doesn't, but
yeah,
for people that's trying to figure that out, I mean, it's almost like it's rolling over, and then the right rear just blows out and it plants. And as soon as
yeah.
it plants, the gas and go on.
Yeah, it's like you just hit a slick spot in the track for 6 8 feet, and then it just
Yeah,
goes. But it's pretty wild, Thinking about it, going down the road. If your car did that going down the road, you would be just absolutely in a panic if
yeah,
you hadn't ever felt this. But these people out on the track are experiencing so much different stuff inside the cars,
right,
and compared to what you feel in a street car.
right,
So, out of all the cars that you've had, this was one of my Um, and I'm assuming it's going to be the Pinto, but I'm going to ask,
Yeah.
out of all the cars that you've drove or you've had, which one was the best handling car? If you could get everything to handle like that, it'd be perfect.
The problem with the Pinto is, like most people don't understand, is I built that car in 2015. It never won a race until 2020. It took a
Mhm.
long time. It took 7 years for me, Dustin Knowles, to get that car to where it would work. And the modified is the same. It's progressing a lot faster. So the Pinto, when it's right, it's lazy to drive and it's boring to drive. I'm
Mhm.
u- I'm riding around at Montgomery twisting knobs on the radio just because it's boring. I mean, you feel like you're running 45 miles an hour in that car and you're not. I mean, you could stop me to hot dog going down straightaway at Montgomery.
Mhm.
But right now it's kind of a hard toss up between the limited mod and the Pinto right now, because the limited mod, I believe, is right there at the door of getting it to where it's just perfect. Where my confidence is built up to know when I turn the steering wheel left, mash the gas, it's going to stick.
Right.
You know, once you got to get that confidence where when you flat foot that thing off the corner, it's going to go where you want it to go. And until you can build that confidence level up with any car, it doesn't really matter.
That's
It's
right.
just like when you bought the gray car that you've got now from Roy and them. The first night you drove it, you didn't just sell it off in the corner and go to Victory Lane with it. It took, a half a year, 3/4 of a year to get that thing where you could drive it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's actually took for it to feel good. This year was the first year I've had it where it one time felt good,
Yeah.
and that was in the the push. I'm thinking when I bought the car and weighing more than Roy and all that, we just threw everything off.
Yeah.
We get the numbers right and all, but something once we got the numbers right and then it went away again, something had to give out. So um,
That's
you
it.
know how
And I
cars are. One thing could be off, and it's
and I had a Toyota that was that way. We raced it a couple times at Sayre, raced it at Montgomery, Huntsville. It didn't matter where we carried it. It run 15 laps like a scalded dog. Coming down the front straightaway on the 15th lap, you reached up there and flipped the switch, and it went to junk. It
yeah,
basically. But when you flip that switch, you could have a 30-minute red flag and it never come back. So
yeah,
some of them are just that temperamental.
yeah,
I've seen them. It's especially like with Dustin Knowles with running a modified to mayhem with his car. We have went and tested Friday night. Been one of the 3 fastest cars on the property. Go across the street to the campground, come back the next morning, bought 4 tires on that car, and it is junk. There's nothing you can do with it. Put the tires on it from last, and it still won't come back. And it didn't do nothing but sit on jack stands.
yeah,
You know, some of them are just when they hit, and then it might take a month to get it to come back. I've been around the modified for years and years and years, but driving that limited car this year, I've got a whole lot more respect for them things than I ever have. Because I thought, yeah, just jump in and drive it. It's totally different. I've drove Dustin's car at Montgomery like on a Friday night test session, stuff like that. But it's 10, 15 laps, and you're usually out there by yourself. You're not racing.
yeah.
You
That's
flip,
right.
just let it slide through the corner, and we'll try it again next corner. But driving that thing now, and trying to get the feel of it that I wanted back in the car. Getting used to the hardest thing was getting used to driving something that didn't have no fenders on it, because
That's right.
I'm used to having a front bumper and fender where if I can go in there and lean on you if I need to, and help you through the corner. But you can't do that with a modified. And the first 3 or 4 races I drove that car, you know, I feel like I was giving up positions because I would go to stick the nose of the car in there, and then in my brain, hey, there ain't no fenders on this, so I just abort the mission and start all over again. Then it'd take me 3 laps back where I was at.
Yeah,
Um,
getting in that also comes, I feel like, with being at the wheel, but looking at that guy ahead of you and not really knowing his tendencies.
right,
Like if me and my dad are racing each other at Jasper, I completely know all his tendencies, and everybody that's raced at Sayre this year, I pretty much know, are they going to give me that line or are they not,
right,
and where to pass them, where to try to pass them.
Yeah.
But so getting in that car and then having all those new people to learn,
Yeah.
plus the car.
Right. Yeah, and it's the same thing, like you asked me after the whole incident, 25. You asked me at the tech line what I thought. And like I said, we sit so low and so far back in these cars from
Hmm.
where I was standing. You thought you was there, but you wasn't. From
Yeah.
where you was at in the car, you was plumb to the door. I've been in that
Yeah.
situation before a couple of times. That's the reason that I told you that way. Because it's so easy for these cars, running the speeds we're running. You butt off in a corner and you think you're there, and you're not because you're so far back. Um, Billy Melvin actually taught me that lesson years ago at the fairgrounds when we were racing out there, because I sit so far back in the car that I'm driving this thing past the caution light going into turn 3, and he said, "No, you're not. You're letting off at the back gate." And I said, "There is no way." So we went down there one Friday night, and Billy Melvin brought a 6-foot orange cone and put it on the racetrack. He said, "Drive till you drive past that cone." He said, "Look out the windshield." And he said, "When you go past that cone, you lift and drive the car off in the corner." I said, "Okay." Well, unbeknownst to me, about the third time I went by it, either him or Dustin Knowles moved it about 6 foot further off in the corner. By the time it was over with, I was driving the car 3/4 of the way off in the middle of the corner at,
Hmm.
in a Toyota. And then
Yeah.
when I come in, they was like, "See, now you're driving it past the cone," and I'm like, "Where's the cone?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, it's over there." Every time I'd go by it, they'd move.
Yeah, that's what my dad did to me at Jasper
Yeah,
when Kenny owned it, and we went over there and he used to have those big water barrels,
yeah,
and he put one down there and he said, "Put the nose of the car right here,"
hmm
and that's your mark in the center of this corner. And honestly, if you go back and watch some of the films where Miss Penniger, I think is her last name,
yeah,
um, I actually hit that one day coming off. It had got hit and knocked up, and the track officials put it up onto that concrete down in 3 and 4, and I
yeah,
hit it. So I can attest to somebody moving those cones on you if you get focused on that.
yeah,
And man, you're going for the cone. You're not going for anything else. You're not
yeah.
really paying attention to where it's at or who
Right. It's
who's out there moving it or anything like that.
the limited modified is moving so fast that I think I'm letting off at the front bumper of the push truck going into turn 1. And they're like,
Hmm.
Walter and Dustin are like, "No, you're not. You're driving plumb off in the corner." And I'm like, "There's no way." And so finally, Dustin went and stood down there, literally with his phone up on the hood of the push truck down there. And I go 10 car lengths past him, and it's still screaming. He's like, "See, I'm telling you." He said, "Well, you think you're lifting, but you're not." So when you get side by side like that, I mean, you have to trust somebody, because you get in there and you think you're there, and a lot of times you're not. But then again, I've gave up a couple of positions this year in the limited car because I thought they were there because of the mirror that I had with a painted spoiler. I couldn't see through the spoiler, so
Yeah,
I glance in the mirror to see a whole nose piece and 2 tires. And I'm like, "Well, he's there," And then come home, watch the video, and there's still a car length behind me, but I've gave up the bottom and just essentially gave up the position because you think they're further there, which is I've gotten so used to radios. We can't run the radios in the limited cars,
yeah,
so had I had a radio, I probably never even would have looked in the mirror. But now I've had to get in that spot mirror, at least glance in it going off in the corners. Because I'm so used to Dustin or my daughter Mackenzie, one of them on the radio telling me where everybody's at. Well, now I don't have a radio anymore.
that's
Um,
right. Yeah, I mean, relearning that
yeah,
that passing lane where they're going to be, or even that mirror, looking in that mirror, learning where they're going to be. But like you said, if you move up out of the bottom groove at Sayre, they're going to be able to get in there, and it's just it's going to be so much harder to regain that position on the outside at Sayre. I think Jasper and Sayre are the two hardest tracks in that second groove to
yeah,
make them work. Unless your car's just light years better than the guy that you're racing,
yeah.
you're not going to make that outside groove work.
Only way it's
And
work is you have to just about go in there and about bust your butt and turn it sideways, and then they jump in the gas and
yeah,
get crossed up too, and then you can get back away from them. It's about the only way that's ever going to work.
that's
It,
right.
it
Bell it off in there until you make them think you're going to wreck yourself to stay there.
right.
Is So much of passing people at Sayre is that, especially if there's no respect between the drivers.
Yeah.
Like the same incident with the 25 on a normal night with a normal person and two people not racing for a championship. He
Yeah.
lifts and lets me go anyways.
Right.
I mean, it's because I was deep enough, and then probably two different people and not me. I don't drive it in there as hard on that restart like that because the way I was getting beat during the
Yeah.
race. Like, let's just both go home happy. But all you got to do is be in front of that guy. If you can get in front of him, you can kill his momentum where he's faster than you, and you win the race. I mean,
Okay.
that was my total thoughts on that. Bringing that back up,
Yeah.
and I asked you that night coming through tech because it's like just a common dog in the park.
Right.
Hey
You know.
man, should I have bid him or should I not? And it was just I was gonna sling it in there, and if I went back and there was anybody else in his car in that position, I still would have did the same move
Yeah.
to anybody else.
And it's like I told you that night. I mean, I think you sitting in the car behind that helmet, holding that steering wheel, to you were to the door of that car.
Yeah,
I don't think if even if the roles were reversed and the 25 car was under you like that, the outcome was going to the same way it happened, regardless. Because I don't think he know you wasn't going to live because you're there for the same reason we're there to win races, not run second.
that's right.
And
Yeah,
it's so hard to explain to people how fast something happens in these cars that you never. I mean, you got
I did it on a stopwatch in front of somebody.
yeah.
Like, how much speed? And I asked them, I said, how much speed do you think you can pick up on a lap time through the center of the corner? Oh, 2/10. So let me show you how fast 2/10 is.
Hmm.
And I hit it and stopped it, and it's already at like 4/10. I
Yeah.
said, now go tell me you would have did something different. Once you
Right.
make the decision, you make the decision. There is no thinking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, and like the 77, of course, he's the one that hit him head on, and Burchett bumped into him as well. Those guys don't have 1 second to react.
Right.
Bump a second on your stopwatch and tell me you would have did something different. You're not looking 450 feet away from you like you are in a street car, and you
Well,
got time to react with anti-lock brakes and everything else.
yeah. And had that not been actual restart where everybody was already bunched up to start with, it
Yeah,
probably could have just spun him out both went and it would have been on about their day. Everybody was bunched up. So I mean, when he got turned around, I mean, there was nowhere to go. Had that been a 10 lap string of laps that was running and you got that position, it would. I mean, you'd still done what you done. You'd spun him out. You'd both went to the rear. No harm, no foul. Everybody would start over again.
yeah,
But just because it was that restart, they come piling in there. I mean, and there's a bunch of people that I see, and I mean, a couple of them still that I know. They don't drive no further than that hood pin. That's as far as they look.
and boy, do they got some good looking hood pants.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't fault those guys for that because everybody isn't like me and you. If you think about it, we didn't have our dads race. They didn't have their dads race
Yeah.
10 or 15 or 20 years. And in my case, my dad raced 20 years before I started racing.
Right.
And so he taught me so much up front. So you can't always fault those guys for being 5 years in and they're still immature in the car.
Right.
And I say that I'm not talking about them as a person, but their driving styles and stuff is immature because it already takes you 2 or 3 years just to, I say, even develop any type of racing mentality.
Oh yeah.
You're just driving a car at some point. But you know, people like me and you and Adam, and there's a lot of other people out there. We're so lucky that we had somebody to teach us the ropes and teach us even either the common courtesies or the hey, don't pay them any attention. They're all there to hate you. They're
Hmm.
all they're all there to try to get the same thing you're there for. So don't
Right.
let the silver tongue guy tell you he'll let you have that position
Yeah.
over and over and over and over again.
Because
So
that was the same way. Like 2020 in Montgomery. It was every week. We're gonna look at this. We're gonna tear this down. We're gonna look at this. And I'm like, dude, this is the same car. I haven't done anything. They pulled the gear out of my car one night. And I was like, what are you gonna find with the gear?
yeah,
But well, we got to check. Everybody's jumping up and down. I said, well, tell them to put the money, pull the motor down. But nobody wanted to do that. So that I
yeah,
mean, they literally waited till the end of the year. after we won the hunt for the bear, and the track tore the motor down, and all of them was standing up there just staring at the ground.
I kind of like that. I mean, I kind of like the track taking initiative that, hey, this guy now has dominated for so long or done so much. Let's step in and show everybody that he's not illegal.
Right.
Or like myself personally, this year getting protested. I mean, it's kind of a medal of honor. Like,
Right. Yeah.
thanks. I was fast enough this year for you to think I was cheating. That's
Yeah.
what we wanted to do. The one night I probably would have respected the protest more. My motor blew up, and we was running 14:38 in the race, and that's hammering. And the
Mm-hmm.
motor blew up down there. And when I told my dad that we was running 9,700 RPMs, he said, you probably had enough lead not to be running 9,700 RPMs, so you got what you deserve.
Yeah.
I said, well, I mean, you tell me don't let up. If I don't let up, I get in trouble.
Right.
And then if I do let up, I get in trouble. So I just drive the car. We just
That,
try to set it up to not turn that much.
that was the same thing I had, like my wife and my daughter, every week, they're just picking on you. I said, it's a pat on the back. I
Yeah.
said, they can't find us. They're cutting chunks out of tires. They're pulling flywheels. They're pulling the gears. They're pulling the camshaft, pulling carburetors. I said, it's a pat on the back. I said, I've went home, for the 6.5 years it took before we ever won a race with that car. I wasn't out there because I finished third, jumping up, down. That guy's got to be cheating and this and that. We went home. We did our homework.
Yeah.
Happens. It took 7 years to make that car do anything. I mean, there was years I told Dustin, I said, just cut it in half. Just cut the car in half. We'll weld it back together. Got to fix something. I mean, we've done everything else. And then when I took the stock body off of it to put that aluminum body on it, we actually found half the problem. One of the first races when I took it to Huntsville, I got spun around going into turn one and backed it in the fence.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't back in there hard, but apparently it backed in there hard enough to bend the right rear frame rail down. So when we cut the body off of it to put that sheet metal body on it, we found it. When I cut the roll bar loose, the rear clip moved almost 3/4 of an inch.
Really?
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
bent.
that'll.
But with the stock body on it,
Yeah, because the way it's all encased
you,
with the inner fender and all that. Yeah,
you
if
couldn't.
it doesn't show up, you just have to start. What if we have issues like that where the car's just not doing right? We just go looking for creases. 'Cause there
Yeah,
shouldn't be creases. There's straight lines and there's continuous flows in the body that keeps them. I mean, in the frame rail, but there shouldn't be creases.
yeah.
And
And
so that's what we go looking for.
we took the body off the car, and I looked at it, and I thought, man, that just don't look right. So I borrowed a jig from a buddy of mine and sat it on a jig. And when we sat the car on the jig and clamped it down, the right front was a little over 9/16 of an inch in the air. It wouldn't sit down on the jig. As soon as I cut that bar, the car sat back flat on the jig.
Yeah. So it just had it. Sorry
It was,
about that. That was my knucklehead brother.
right.
Blow the horn.
So, but yeah, I mean, I mean, you take those cars, and it takes years and years and years to get them where they're at, and it's the same thing like right now, the Volkswagen and my Pinto are sitting side by side in the shop right now. The Volkswagen was the best thing you could build 20 years ago. Top of the
Hmm.
line thing on it was brand new. Now it's so outdated. It's a museum piece is about all it is. I mean, we've carried it a couple of times, and Dustin works on my car all the time. And we've carried that thing to Montgomery. And I mean, I have to run 3/4 throttle just to make a show out of it, just to ride around with it. But it's the same thing too. My car was built 2014, finished in 15, and now it's to the point now to where, 4 or 5 years from now, it's completely outdated. The
Yeah.
only thing you could do would be, would if you stayed at Savory with the car, because I mean, and it's not a shot at anybody, but the pony cars at Savory haven't really moved forward. They went to a point in the 90s and 2000s, and they're still there. They're not, and it's bad because I have one, but the tube chassis cars have killed pony car racing everywhere but Savory,
Yeah.
because most people that have a tube chassis car is not going to bring it down there.
Yeah, I don't get the tube chassis cars not coming to Sayre. I know that Charles McGee brought his when he had his.
Yeah,
And I think that yes, with the right tweaking and the right scenario, the cars could be really fast. So
yeah,
could the Fords. But I haven't saw anybody run lap times beyond what probably you guys was running in the 90s.
yeah,
But the tire was better, I think then. The tire was probably better.
yeah. Well,
Um,
when we first started the old Hoosier Comanche, which is the 790 now, when we started on that, which was it Sayre and BR both, you know, it was that was a good tire. But you know, days I mean, without you got all these tires that are coming apart, and these tires that are this and are that, and like with the American Racer that you're on right now, well, you can buy two versions of it. You can buy an asphalt version of it or a dirt version of it. Well, the dirt
yeah,
version's a lot softer tire, but it's going to take being beat to death on an asphalt track, but about 10, 15 laps, and you're going to have to slow down and cool it off, and then hope it
yeah.
comes.
We experienced that tire this year. My first, like I said, this was my first real year of understanding grip and things like that, and really having a feel for the car, and feeling it in the seat and feeling it in the steering wheel really well.
Right.
And man, those tires when they would fall off, they were falling off bad.
Yeah. And see,
15 to 2 tenths, just
it was
just
just in the
off a
limit.
wall.
I bought a brand new set of tires at first race and run on a limited mod. By the tread up and just overall looking at the tire, they were fine. And I think the last two races, I bought a new set of tires to put on the car. We didn't change nothing, bolted four brand new tires on it. Dude, we carried that thing to racetrack, and it was like a brand new car. And was actually we were battling for the lead that night, and the fuel cell foam come apart and stopped the fuel filter up.
Oh man,
So we went back, which was King of Dixie night. The car was good, but I needed that raised fuel filter stopped up to figure out how to make the car on the long run, where I could have freed it up just a little bit more.
yeah,
Because I mean, and even Joey told me, he said you're knocking on the door. You got to get a little bit more, and a lot of it is I mean, I still have to settle down in that car. I still. Barry Martin told me a couple of weeks ago. Me and Colby Fitzgerald have the same problem. He said, we can't get the pony car out of you. He said, you can't string 5 laps together consistently to save your life. He said, you'll run 3 laps, at a 13.99, and he said, and then you'll run a 14.40.
yeah,
And he said, it's even worse in a modified that you have to settle down in a car and click off lap after lap after lap after lap. He said, that part of the equation is still the same with a pony car. He said, but y'all get overexcited, you get within 2 car lengths of the guy in front of you, and then you bury it off in the corner. And I'm like, yep, that's it. Because the night that Colby won out there, Barry told me, he said, I don't know what happened to that car. He said, but Colby was going to run second if whatever happened. That's not the fuel foam stopped the filter up. And that's what he told me. He said, if you can ever string together 5 laps just back to back, just 5, you'd be more dangerous than you are. He said, but you can string like 3 of them together, and then you'll run 3-4 tenths off, and then
yeah,
you'll go a lap, a tenth faster than you have been, and then you'll fall back off again. He said, you have to settle down and drive it. He said, just
yeah,
because you 2 car lengths of him, stay there, chase him down, because it's Sayre. You don't just drive off in turn 1 and decide, well, I'm gonna pass him coming off 2. You drive off in turn 1 to pass him coming off turn 4.
yeah, yeah.
When
You definitely gotta be smooth entering
yeah,
to be able to get that off. And like he said, 4 or 5 laps in a row. A lot of a lot of times, I think at Sayre, you think you're closer than you are,
yeah,
and maybe if you get there, a lot of like with the 7 car this year, Samuel Kelly,
uh-huh,
um, if he was in front of me, I would move down about a half a car all the
yeah,
way around the track just to stay in his mirror
mhm,
for 2 or 3 laps, and then just move completely out of his mirror.
yeah,
And then they go to looking for you. Where'd he go? Am I running off from him? So
yeah,
it's just that head game that they peak, you're there. They peak, you're there. And then they peak, and you're not there. And then they go to wanting to come up the track to see where you're at, and that gives you
yeah.
the run off. And so getting schooled like that for so many years, you
Yeah,
learn how to do some of that, you know.
yeah.
But
And I mean, and
watching those,
a lot this year. I mean, Dustin and Walter Cartledge has crawled all over me because I'm doing that same thing. They're like, quit looking for him.
yeah,
Just drive your car. Quit looking for him. Quit worrying about what he's doing. He'll find you. Trust me. You run off in the corner, do
hmm,
something stupid, they'll bump you. Quit looking for him. Just drive the car. And it's
yeah,
just, you know, I think what I may need to do. I mean, which I still drive with earplugs. I may just need to put an actual FM radio or Pandora or something in there, so I've got something going on,
yeah.
um,
Just pick you a song and let it go.
and just let it play on repeat till I get done.
Yeah, yeah. As soon as you do, something will happen and it'll be screeching in your ear, and it'll be like me
Mhm.
singing to you or something. They
Right?
switch it to the YouTube channel, and
Yeah.
you'll be running faster laps trying to get out of that thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it. Like I said, it's a different experience to actually. I mean, I've drove a modified, a couple of times here and there. I've drove that same car that I'm driving for Walter 2 or 3 times, but he'd call me like Saturday at 6 o'clock. Hey, you want to come drive this limited car tonight? And I'm like, yeah, I guess, and just fly to the
Just
racetrack,
all of a sudden.
qualify, and just take off in it. And it was never really set up where I could drive it, and it's taken the latter part of this year to get it there. Um, but like I said, I mean, I think we're really, really close with the car. And then now, of course, we've introduced this late model in the middle of it, so now we've got all kind of mess to work on. But
Yeah,
Dustin driving it right now has so much experience in those cars. It just you tell me what you want me to turn, we'll go from there.
yeah. He said he lost brakes in the last race,
Yeah,
and had a few issues throughout the race. But I thought the car looked good. It was down on the splitter, is what I would call it. I don't know what y'all call it,
yeah,
but it was down on the splitter, entering and through the center, and then of course launching off. It looked pretty good.
yeah. The car had
Um,
a good attitude about it all the way around the racetrack. That car literally had never been out of the shop. I bought that car in March, and that's the first night when we brought it to King of Dixie. The first night it's been out of the shop.
yeah.
Um,
So
we had so many issues in practice where we didn't get to actually practice enough to know to raise the car up. So we wound up dragging a splitter and the bumper or the nose piece and all kinds of stuff off of it. But to take a car that neither one of us have drove and still finished fifth or sixth with it, with no brakes, it's Sayre
yeah,
is it,
yeah, that's definitely good. I mean, the car, like I said, the car looked good, and you said it best there. That it had the attitude. It had the move forward attitude. It wanted to do good.
yeah,
Um, So you're going to be in the limited car, but you own the late model. Is this
yeah.
limited car kind of, getting you prepared to run that late model? Or do you have plans of racing that late model in any series or anything that may be coming?
We are planning to try and run the Southern Outlaw Series that Eric and them's putting together. We haven't really decided which one of us is going to drive it. I mean, it may be a deal. Dustin drives it one race, I drive one race, or Dustin runs the Sayre Saturday night shows with it. I run the Southern Outlaw Series with it. Um, I took the ride for in the limited to keep from jumping straight from a pony car to basically a pro late,
Yeah.
because I saw that thing, pro late model with an outlaw body on it. Excuse me.
Will it be in the World of Wheels this year? That was one of my questions. Again, um, before you answer that, one of my questions I had wrote down. I've seen you at the World of Wheels. I know at least with 3 cars. Have you had more than that? And if you have, which one was your favorite? What car do you think you had was the best looking, or truck? Because the
Uh,
truck was the truck was a slick unit. I
yeah,
liked the truck.
the truck and the Pinto with the blue and silver body on it when it was first done was a good looking race car too.
Hmm.
Um, the outlaw car will be in will be in the World Wheels unless something changes.
Yeah,
Um, so, um, but yeah, I mean we've won the World Wheels with a Pinto. We won it with a truck. We won it 2019 with Dustin's Volkswagen. Um, I think 2020, I think we was there with Walter Cartledge's red modified. I think we got second place with it, second or third place with it. I don't remember. But as far as our cars, every one of them that we've put in there, we have won first place with them.
Yeah. So which one was your first place?
The first place the very first one I got was with the Pinto Blue and Silver.
I'm saying for you, if you lined them all up and was going to judge them, which one would you give the trophy to?
It's hard to really say between the truck and the Pinto. I mean, and I'll be honest, I didn't think the truck looked that good until it was under all of those lights in the auditorium down there. To me, it didn't look good. I mean, it looked good, wrong, but it didn't look like my Pinto did too. But when we rolled in there and got it set down on the ground, all of those lights were on it. You know, it's going to be a real hard toss up between those two.
Yeah.
But I
I could see
think,
the favoritism for the Pinto.
yeah. I mean, the Pinto, like I said, I mean, I've had that car so long. My
It's
dad,
got that look to you. It's got your
right? I mean, I
feel.
had that thing for so long. Back '94 when my dad was killed. My dad was actually driving the car. So I mean, it has a lot of sentimental value to it.
Yeah.
It will never be for sale. I mean, $2 million wouldn't buy that car. And everybody's, oh man, you're crazy. And I'm like, there's not a price on it. You cannot buy it. So but I've accomplished so much with it, and we've done so much with it. And the truck, it wasn't even going to the World of Wheels until probably 2 weeks before the World of Wheels went there. My oldest daughter came to me and she said, I want to put the truck in the World of Wheels. And I was like, well, it didn't even have any windows in it. It was just the body sitting there. It was lettered, but it didn't. And we literally worked feverishly for about 2 weeks, and we finished it Wednesday night before it had been there on Thursday.
That's awesome. I mean, moving forward that fast with something, you kind of feel rushed and everything. But
Yeah,
when it's done, you can look back and say the truck looked great. I think out of all of them that I've seen you have there,
yeah,
the super truck was my favorite one.
yeah.
The
It's like I
Pinto, you
told
had it on the Hoosiers. I don't like that Hoosier tire. I don't like how it looks. If that thing would have been on those American racers with them big 8-inch wheels under it, it
yeah.
probably would have. I mean, it was still a good looking car.
And
I
the
just
thing,
don't like those Hoosiers.
it actually on the old Hoosier slicks. It wasn't even on the 790. It was on a set of
Yeah,
Hoosiers because that's what we had.
yeah,
Um, that we dug up and the main reason we used them is those tires. The sidewalls were so hard on them, they didn't even have to be aired up, and they would stay up.
yeah,
Um, but I mean, but it's like I told you, when we was down there talking about the truck, if I raised it up and raised the hood and let you see what all we didn't finish, it was a disaster area up under it. But
yeah,
as far as what you could see it, because we had it slammed down on the ground and all that stuff where you couldn't see all of that mess. But um, but it was a disaster area under the body. What you could see, I mean, the rest of it was still rough. It was pretty bad.
and we'll call it Area 81 under there, where it just didn't need to be seen.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
there was a lot of flat black painted, and I mean, it had cloth over the rear end, a black sheet laying over the rear end just so you couldn't see it because we forgot to paint it. And I mean, it looked like it'd been in a junkyard for 8 years. But it was a brand new 9-inch, but we didn't paint it.
yeah,
It was all surface rusted and all that stuff. So we had to actually put a sheet over the rear end just so you couldn't see it
yeah. Just cover some of it up.
because it stuck out like.
But yeah, the main thing was the sheet metal work was phenomenal. The way the body went together. I
Yeah,
liked the hood and everything. The truck looked really good.
yeah,
But I could see where the car, having all the looks. I still have a taste for like the hatchback style Toyota
yeah,
with a stock rear bumper. Those
yeah,
cars with the stock rear bumpers, that's just got my look to it. So the Pinto had a stock rear bumper when it was blue and silver,
yeah.
didn't it? Yeah,
Yeah, it had a stock bumper on it all the way up until we put the sheet metal body on it. It had a
yeah,
stock.
that's what I was thinking. Yeah,
Uh, but the truck was something that I tried. I built that body myself.
hmm
I bought the front, the fenders and the hood. I bought, and everything else on that truck I built. We I first ordered the hood that actually goes on the truck, and it was just a plain flat hood. And I was like, man, that looks like crap. There's no way you stick the little bolt, make it bubble over it, and all that. And I was like, there's just no way that looks right. And
Yeah.
so I put one of those hood on a buddy of mine, Eric Hall's Pure Street that he races on dirt. So I called Jimmy Weston and got him to order me another one. And as soon as we laid that hood on there, I was like, man, that fixed it. It's perfect
That's
now.
the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When you go to the World of Wheels, you see some race cars. And they stand out, but they stand out because they're so different.
Yeah.
But when you hate to go and see people represent with race cars that don't look good. And I think um, Wayne, Brian McBrayer, his old 27 cars, y'all have had some of the best looking race cars that's been there. And it really represents well for the racetrack too.
Yeah.
Um,
And I take
having
pride in what I'm doing. I can't stand seeing a race car and there's a piece of vinyl over a rivet and there's a giant bubble the size of a daggum quarter. It drives me nuts.
yeah,
Take the rivet out. Rivet. Take it out. Put your sticker on. Put your rivet back in. What got me really wound up about that when Dustin Knowles was running the ARCA division, we went to Talladega and raced ARCA. And those cars look awesome from 10 foot away. And you walk up
yeah,
on most cars, dude, and there's giant bubbles in them. You can still see Bondo plastered under it. It's got a wrap on it, so on TV and on the racetrack it looks good. But I'm like, dude, you have a $300,000 race car, and it literally looks like a hog cart Savory that y'all put a wrap on.
yeah, yeah. There's definitely been some better looking mini modifieds than there are some of those cars.
I mean, and I just, it drives me nuts to see a daggum sticker, especially if it's somebody that's paying for a sticker and you don't have no better moral about it than to just throw it over the top of a rivet and leave a giant bubble that big around about it. Take pride in
Yeah,
your. It's a 50-cent pop rivet. Drill it out,
yeah,
put your back in there,
yeah. Or take your time and work that
or
bubble
move
close
it around,
to it. Yeah,
cut it. At
yeah,
least put it in there.
yeah,
I just it didn't used to bother me. Years ago, I couldn't. When I first started racing, and in the late '90s, early 2000s, dude, I couldn't put a body on a car to save my life. I couldn't. I didn't have the patience for it. I paid people to do it. And then it got to the point where we got a sheet metal brake. And we started playing with it and this and that. And I mean, I've built bodies on Dustin's modified 4 or 5 times. We built a truck, built the red car. Well, when it was red, both of those bodies were built. The very first one that I totally built was my Pinto. The 1 year it had a white body on it in 2019.
yeah,
I put it in. I backed it in the shop and sat it in the floor, set it up on the stands that it needed, the right height stands, and I commenced to build the body. And that's what I come up with. And then when I built it, it was in the shop, so it didn't look odd or nothing like that. And I pulled it outside and I realized, wait a minute, the front bumper's 3 foot in front of the tires. This ain't gonna work. So as
yeah,
carrying it to the racetrack and we realized, hey, wait, this is not gonna work. So we kept cutting and moving, cutting, moving. And when we did the red body, that was the second version of it. Um, I learned from the first time, instead of hanging a body and then my nose bit, I hung the nose first and then built the body to it.
yeah.
The same way I did the truck. The truck was, we put the nose piece and the fenders together in one piece, sat it up on the truck, and then I built the rest of the truck.
Yeah, absolutely. That nose piece is a staple to it. You see some of them run uphill, some of them run
Yeah.
across and slanted and all that. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. If you did it yourself, I'm the type of guy that if you did it yourself, and I don't care if you even paid somebody to do it, your car looks good if you love it. But
Yeah.
for me, I like that nose piece to be pretty level. It can look weird on the track. It doesn't matter to me how it looks on the track. Sitting in the shop's where I see it most of the time. I want it to look good in the shop.
And that means, a bunch of people tell me all the time, pretty don't win nothing but car shows. That's correct. It don't. But then again, I mean, you got pride in your work, you know,
Yeah.
just,
Well, and your sponsors, like you carry sponsors,
yeah,
so you don't want somebody to call Bruce and say, "Hey, man, your car out there looked like crap, but it ran good."
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
we do a lot of things with ours, with shows for kids and stuff like that. You won't carry it out there with the quarters beat off of it and the hood caved in and the grill knocked out of it. take time to fix it.
Whoa. 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 I race at Sayre every Saturday, okay?
I,
It's not me knocking the quarters in. Now,
yeah,
I think we're going to get mine redone this year. Um, I had plans of going ahead and putting it in the shop, in the new shop, but we decided we was going to seal the floor before
yeah,
we, and take our time with the shop. So we've been working out of a one bay shop for probably the last 5 years.
right.
Um, but yeah, I plan on redoing mine as well. But that's one thing that I think when people see Eddie Dodd, that you've had good looking race cars, you've kept them up,
Yeah,
and so that's one thing to be remembered for
yeah.
is your stuff look good.
Yeah.
Um,
And like I said,
have we?
years ago, we tore that quarter panel up, lay it on the floor, and stomp it flat, and put it back on the car.
Yeah,
Now put a new quarter panel. I own a vinyl machine. I'm gonna fix it. We ain't doing that anymore.
yeah. So you actually own a vinyl machine to put the stickers on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that something that you do for people, or you just do
I,
it for yourself?
certain people. I mainly bought it just I was tired of paying people to do it and then getting to run around. So I just bought a vinyl machine. And then,
I heard that.
today, then it's because you didn't go in there and do it.
That's
You know,
right.
the truck, Casey Rogers Vintage Graphics did 90% of the truck, and then I didn't have
Yeah,
time. The stripes and stuff that she put on it, I didn't have time to mess with it. So I paid her to do it, and then I finished the truck after she lettered
yeah.
it.
I understand that. When every time you bend something in one of these cars, you got to find somebody with a frame machine. So we
Yeah,
just got one.
right.
I think the sheet metal brake, the frame machine, and a
Yep.
welder
Hmm.
is all you need to keep a car
Oh yeah,
keep a car going.
yeah,
And common knowledge to use the stuff.
yeah, yeah. And
Really, I mean,
for years, we had sheet metal brakes, but I didn't know how to use it. I could bend it enough to make something, but and make it work. But did it look nice? No. I mean,
right?
I sat down there probably 2 months with just scrap pieces of metal, taking a bead roller and just learning how to use it. Just
Yeah,
to roll designs. Brett and Paul and all can tell you about it. They do awesome work. One of their cars are sharp as they can be, but Brett didn't do that.
hmm.
It took trial and error to do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. With my dad, it's crazy that he was a HVAC guy for like 28 years.
Right,
So, like, just knowing the sheet metal brake and
right,
being able to get that experience with the sheet metal brake, knowing how to put the bends and stuff in the metal without wrinkling it or tearing it up, man,
yeah.
it's
Like your dad's car, I've walked past that thing probably 300 times this year at the racetrack. In the last race, King of Dixie race, I seen where that piece of diamond plate that's on the back of it that's painted. I've never
yeah,
noticed Little King of Dixie.
yeah.
You know,
He actually wrapped the whole rear of that car one time in diamond plate.
yeah,
It's and it was a with that car, we didn't replace the tailpiece when he redid it, but that hood that's on that car is a fiberglass hood that was
mm-hmm,
broken half in the front. He
right,
redid the whole fiberglass on it. He does everything himself. He
right,
doesn't buy stuff. 9 times out of 10, if it's on a car and it's messed up, and somebody's about to throw it away, he's like, "Hey, I'll take that." And
yeah,
you may see it stuck in the back of that record or something. But pipes or bars that came off late models when they wreck, and he's like, "Here's y'all's this." Well, we don't want it. It's down there. Like we fixed a whole car trailer with somebody's nose piece bars that holds the grill and stuff. I mean, holds the sheet
right,
metal out. We had some stuff to fix, so we fixed it with that. I mean, it's brand new. It's just got one bend. Just cut it off and reuse.
right,
You know,
right,
especially not on a race car necessarily. You don't want
yeah,
your roll bars to be bent and re-welded and cut up like that. But on that trailer, we just cut it, welded it, smoothed it back out with a grinder, and it's good to go.
yeah.
But well, Eddie, have we missed anything? Is
Uh,
anything that you thought would come up that you wanted to talk about?
yeah, I think you pretty much got it covered. Unless you got any more questions,
Oh man, that covered it with me. I thank you for coming on, man.
no
And
problem.
it was a pleasure talking to you.
You too, man.
All right, man. Have a good night.
All right, buddy. You too.
Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in to GRP episode number 9 with Eddie Dodd. And next week, maybe we'll have somebody else on. And if you liked it, hit the thumbs up, and we'll see you next time. Peace out, Eddie.
All right, buddy. See you, man.